Welcome back to my workshop. Now today, hopefully, I'm going to make a nice simple puzzle for a very small child. It's going to be their name, it's going to be on a piece of wood, and it's just going to be a pull the letters out, put the letters in, something like that. Okay, let me quickly show you our design. So once again, we're in the design studio. Now the puzzle is going to be about 35 centimeters wide and probably about 15 centimeters high. It's going to sit on the floor so she can pull the bits out and throw them around the living room. Now, the letters themselves, the puzzle pieces, are going to be made out of about 20mm thick pine. Now, from the top, the puzzle is going to look like this. Like that. Okay, so each of these letters will be removable, and this bit, the base, is going to be routed out. So, let's have a look at the material. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this bit of pine board as the base, which is about 20mm thick. And I'm going to use this piece of pine board for the letters. Right, so I've managed to get my base and what's going to be the letters out of the same piece of wood, which is good. Problem I've got, obviously, because this is reclaimed wood, underneath I've got loads of holes. Okay, these are dowel holes. Now previously I've used these, which is my plug cutters. These are Ferrex ones, and all they do is you use these, drill into a piece of wood, and it gives you basically a dowel. But I've got some dowels, so what I'm probably going to do is, rather than that step, I'm just going to put in some dowels, put some glue in now, and then cut these off, and then when I sand it all back, there'll be no holes left. Okay. Let's get on with that. Right, so I've got my dowels in now with a bit of glue. I put a bit of sawdust around them to fill in any little gaps. You won't be able to see any of this anyway because it'll be right at the very bottom and it's going to be painted. But I'll wait for this to dry and then cut these off and then sand it down. But in the meantime, we'll get over to the CNC machine and we'll do a quick design so we can start cutting out some letters. Right, I won't go into too much detail here, but what I've done is I've created my piece of wood here, which is the same size as this. And then I've got the letters, which I've had to download a new font. So this looks very much like this, but a bit tidier. Now I've set that so it routes it out, and it should look like this. Okay, so when I've routed it out, it should be like this. Okay, so I've quickly got my base here. This is what it's going to look like, as we just said. But I've now designed the letters as well, which are going to be like this. Okay, so they're going to be about 20mm thick. So those letters should, in theory, fit in here. Okay, so the next stage is to get it all mounted and start cutting. Right, so I found the centre of the piece of wood. I've mounted it on the CNC machine, so made sure there was clearance for the spindle to pass it. I loaded my G code into the machine, so I'm ready to start. Let's start carving the base. Right, so that's the base roughly cut out. What I've got to do now is cut out the letters. But now because I'm using a slightly bigger bit, I'm going to end up with this join between these two letters here. Let me make it a bit clearer. Okay, it's a bit clearer now. So as you can see here, there's a bit of a join between the M and the A. That's because the bit I'm using can't cut through that small gap. So what I'm going to have to do is cut it out like this, and then what I'll do is I'll separate these afterwards and then sand them down. So now I've got to get my next piece of wood on the CNC machine, get it centered, and I've actually got to stick it to the base, because otherwise when it cuts the letters out, they become free and they could end up flying across the workshop. Okay, so you're going to use a bit of double-sided tape for that. Right, let's do that. So now I guess it's the moment of truth. Do these letters fit in the base that I've made? Let's get them off of here and into the base. So the answer to that question is no, they don't. They nearly fit, but the problem is here we've got like square corners, because obviously the bit can cut inside and nice and square. But obviously on the letters we've got rounded corners. So what I've got to do is quickly round off all these corners, like this corner, and then they should fit in. I might have to do a little bit of sanding, but yeah. It's pretty damn close. In fact, it's too close. That's the problem. Right, let's get these two letters cut separately. Right, so I've given this all a bit of a sand now, and the letters fit in there lovely. But the problem is, the person who's going to be using this is quite young. So they're not going to pick them up like this. They're probably going to tip them and all sorts of stuff. So even though they're a lovely fit, what I'm going to have to do is make them looser, just so they can be pulled in and out. Now what I'm going to do is do a little recess around the top here, or a little chamfer around the top with my router, and it's got a guided bit in it, and this should give me a little bit of a chamfer like this here. I'll do that all around the edge, so hopefully that will make it easier to pull them in and out, because obviously I've got to put paint on these as well. Right, so let me try that, and hopefully I won't muck it up. So these have now been chamfered around the edge, and also the letters have been chamfered on the edge. So now they fit in a lot easier and they come out a lot easier. So in theory, it doesn't matter how they pick them up, they should be able to get them out without them flopping all over the place. That's good. I hope it's not too bad once the paint's on. Right, so I've just used the laser, and I've engraved a little message on the back of this. Obviously this is going to be covered in something that's child safe. What I've done now is the letters, I've hung them up in my spray booth, which is just a sheet. Now these are all hanging on a piece of cotton, so I can actually spray all the way around, because I want to spray them rather than paint with a paintbrush, because I think a paintbrush will end up putting the paint on too thick. Then they won't fit in here. Okay, so the next stage is get my little spray gun, get some primer, and give these a quick coat. So the paint I'm going to be using is this stuff, which is Painter's Touch. I've got little pots of this because it's toy safe or child safe, and it's quite expensive. So I only wanted little colours, 3 different colours: pink, white and grey. So the letters are going to be covered in this. So I've now got to dilute this so I can spray it. Right, I'm going to leave those to dry overnight. I'm going to leave the extractor on for a while, leave the door open, even though there's fireworks going off outside. And then tomorrow I can put some colour on them. Right, so these have been drying overnight. They've gone a bit furry, obviously where the grain is raised. So what I'm going to do is quickly take off all those furry bits with one of these abrasive pads and a little bit of very fine sandpaper. And then I'm going to paint them finally with my little airbrush. Okay, the other one was a bit too aggressive and it was blowing these all over the place. So I'm going to try that, but I've had to fix that first. Right, so let's give these a bit of a denib. Right, so that's all the letters painted now. They've had multiple coats of paint. As I say, I use this Painter's Touch paint, which is toy safe, because obviously they'll end up being shoved in their gob. And I painted them using this, which is my little airbrush. Excellent tool once you get it working. It spits and does all sorts of stuff, but once you've got the paint right, and then you can paint them without any trouble. And it's given quite a nice finish. Right, so I'm going to leave these to really harden overnight now and then carry on tomorrow and get a covering on this. Right, so all the letters here now have been drying for a couple of days. They should be nice and crispy dry. Let's quickly try them in the holes. Let's hope they fit. Might need a little bit more. Okay, so now the base is going to get its final coat. I'm just going to use some natural beeswax so you can lick it and all that sort of stuff. Just going to put some wax on it, leave it a second and then buff it off. And then that'll be it done. Right, so that's it. That's this little project finished. It looks simple, but to actually get it to work properly is more tricky than you'd think. Even though I used the CNC machine, it actually cut it too accurately, so it wouldn't slot in. You needed a little bit of free play. You can do this with a normal router, like this sort of thing, and also you could do it with a jigsaw. You could cut out the letters with a jigsaw. It'll probably mean a lot more sanding, but everything I've done, even though I used the CNC machine, you could actually use a normal router for the engraving on the back, which is here. Okay, for the engraving on the back, you could use a little pyrography pen, which you can get for about 20 quid. But it's a nice little project, all done. You don't need all the expensive machinery to do it, but just takes a little bit more work. Right, that'll do. Thank you very much for watching. Happy birthday to Mabel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.